Hey, how you doing? And good afternoon. I want to jump on here for a minute and just talk about 7 words that I read in a book, literally, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years, something like that ago now. Maybe even longer. I'm not sure. That I've shared in a bunch of the Natural Juice Junkie seminars that I used to run. I've spoken about them in videos and things before, but I know not everybody's heard them. And so I wanted to share them again with you today. And they're 7 words about nutrition that I honestly think are the only 7 words about nutrition that most of us need to know. Okay. Although often I put an 8th word in, and that 8th word is real. So I'm going to give you the 7 words as the author Michael Pollan wrote them, but I'm also going to tell you where I put the word real in and why. And Michael Pollan's words are really, really simple. He says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's it. That's his 7 words that, like I say, are pretty much all I think you need to know about nutrition, but I would add one more word in, and that word is real, as in eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. So what's real food? What's real food versus non-real food? Because, you could argue that anything you pick up and put in your mouth and chew and digest and ingest and everything else, it has to be real food, or how else would you be consuming it, right? But here's kind of my definition. I think real food doesn't have ingredients, it is ingredients. As in, when you go to the shop or the store and you're trying to buy food, if you pick up a packet or a package and it's got like 47 different things listed on the back of it and you only recognize 6 of them, then that's in what I would call fake food. Now, obviously we can eat anything and our bodies are pretty adaptable at dealing with it. But my own belief is if something is massively removed from nature, we're probably going to be massively removed from our natural state when we eat it. Now, I say this is just my own belief, but it's also what I've kind of seen by studying nutrition now for over a decade, by applying things to my own life, by coaching and helping other people, for multiple years, by qualifying in various things around health and fitness, by putting all of this into place. I've learned quite a bit, right? And I don't have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination, by the way. And if the day I think I do, I know I have a real problem on my hands. Um, but my general experience is get back to basic ingredients. And whether you go 100% plant based or whether you still have some animal products, or like that, to me is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is how far removed from nature are you, or how close to nature are you? And kind of dovetailed into that, the one thing I will say about animal products is not only are you everything you eat, you are also everything that everything you eat eats. So if you eat something that's eaten something else, how close to nature was its diet, and in particular how close to the natural habitual diet for that particular animal was what it ate. As in, and this is my own belief, and I appreciate not everyone's going to agree with this, but my own belief is if you eat an animal that actually has been raised in a very natural way, it's free range, it's outside, it's been well looked after, it's eating. Uh, it's eating the things that we know that species would instinctively if it was in the wild. That's still pretty close to nature. And I know there's a lot of people who are in this group who will probably say, yeah, but don't eat animals, right? And I'm not going to get into the debate on this particular video about should you or shouldn't you. All I'm saying is if you eat animals that have eaten processed crap, you just well eat the processed crap yourself. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so my big focus on this video in particular is get back to nature. I moved house recently. I've got stuff growing in my garden. That's about as close to nature as I can possibly get. I know those plants in my garden have not been sprayed with any kind of weird chemicals because I'm the one growing them, right? If I go to the supermarket, I don't know what's had wax put all over it. I don't know what things have been sprayed with. I don't know what's been put in the soil. Okay, now I have to trust things as far as possible, and I have to trust some of the labels that we put on things as far as possible, but as close to nature as I can get, the better it is. That's my own belief about health and wellness. Okay, and I say this very much from the point of view of trying to encourage you to do the same thing. I'm not going to tell you what's right or what's wrong for you. I'm not going to tell you how you should eat, but one of the in fact, actually, here's an interesting thing that I'll throw up there. By now, if you're in this group, you probably know that I don't drink alcohol anymore. I used to, and I don't drink alcohol anymore. And I haven't drunk alcohol for over 5 years now. Okay, it was the end of 2014, December 2014, when I had my last alcoholic drink. And some people say to me, "Well, it's easy to give up alcohol. It's much harder to deal with food issues, because I still have to eat, and you don't have to drink." That's not true, is it? That's not true. Our bodies will go longer without food than they will without liquids. But what you don't have to drink is alcohol. You can drink water. You can drink, fresh juices. You can drink, you can drink Coke if you want. But you will need some kind of liquid going into your body to actually survive. You can't not drink. Period. Okay. Same thing with food. So when people talk to me about, I have challenges around food, or I have a food addiction, or I find myself eating too much of foods that I know are not good for me. In many ways, to me, that is the same kind of issue, right? And one of the biggest things that I've learned about addiction, both through working with other people and from personal experience, is it's very often not about the thing itself. It's about the way we think the thing is going to make us feel. I say it again, it's about the way we think the thing is going to make us feel. We consume something thinking it's going to make us feel really good, and then often after we consume it, we've got guilt, we've got shame, we've got remorse, which are not the feelings we were trying to have, right? Pay attention to some of that stuff and know that unless you've got some kind of allergy, or you've got some kind of intolerance, natural food that doesn't really need labels because it is one ingredient, unless you've got an allergy to those things, those are real food, and consuming real food is not going to do you harm. Now, eat way too much of any one thing, yes, it could, but in moderation. I don't think there's a real food on the planet that's going to do you harm. But what about what I would call alcoholic foods? And I don't mean foods that got alcohol in. I mean foods that are processed to the point that they're chemically addictive and they're not health promoting in our bodies. Now, first of all, a lot of those foods are designed to be chemically addictive. There's a great book called Sugar, Salt, Fat, or Fat, Salt, Sugar, or it's those three ingredients. I can't remember the order that they're in on the book title, on the book cover. But that book basically talks about how food companies have manufactured something called a bliss point in food. As in, they've worked out the optimum level of different ingredients to make a food as addictive as possible, to make you want to eat more of it, to give you the same kind of high and buzz that you would get from consuming alcohol or narcotics of some description, right? They've deliberately manufactured foods to do that. But those aren't real foods. Those are what I would call fake foods, alcoholic foods, addictive foods, and consuming those is not good for our health. So, and I get the fact that, by the way, those are the kind of foods that a lot of us crave because they're designed to have that effect on your body. Okay, I love to have a bar of dairy milk sometimes. And I'm not trying to single out any one food there, by the way, and say that's been designed in that way, right? But I love a bar of dairy milk sometimes. I love a can of baked beans sometimes. I love a bunch of stuff that isn't just one ingredient. But I know if I want to really, really focus on my health, the best thing I can do is buy single ingredients and then process them myself. If I want to eat processed food, I buy single ingredients and I process them myself. Or I buy things that are as minimally processed as possible. Unmessed with food. I nearly used an F word there. Uneffed with food, right? But food that is real, basic ingredients that you combine yourself into a nutritious and delicious meal. And I think very, very often we can use our intuition on this. We can use our intuition. I don't need to tell you when you go to the supermarket which food is healthier than which other if it's just an ingredient versus something in a packet. The issue that most of us get is we read the packets and we believe what we read on the packets, right? We see this thing that makes all these bold health claims. And actually, my experience has been very often the things that are making the loudest claims are the things we want to make, we actually want to eat the least of. If you've got a packet that's covered in labeling all over the front telling you it's low this, it's low that, it's good for this, it's good for that, it's enriched with this, it's enriched with the other, look at the ingredients on the back. How long is that damn list? And if you're in the US, by the way, a lot of the foods in the US, the list is way longer on the same product than it is when you come to like the UK or the EU. I travel quite a bit, and I've seen some huge discrepancies on what appears to be the same food in different countries. The front of the box might look the same, the back of the box or the ingredient list is completely different. And so the bit you want to pay attention to is not, what's the nutritional profile per 100 grams and all. Ignore that bit, right? What is on the ingredient list, and also know that the ingredients are listed in such a way that the biggest ingredient is always listed first. So if you pick something, and it goes down in terms of proportions, if you pick something up and the first thing it lists is sugar, you basically know that what you're holding in your hand is sugar. Okay, ignore what it says about the percentage of sugars and stuff on the nutritional facts. If it lists sugar, then it is primarily sugar. If it lists sugar and then it lists syrup, some kind of sugar syrup, and then all of those things are all basically sugar, but they will very deliberately, again, food manufacturers will very deliberately, again, use 4 or 5 different things that are essentially sugar, but there are different ingredients, so that they don't have to put any one of them on there as saying, hey, this is 95% this one ingredient. It's actually 20% this ingredient, 15% this ingredient, 10% this ingredient, but actually all of those are some form of sugar that when you combine them, this product is primarily sugar, So pay attention to food labels if you're going to buy labeled food. But my number one tip is eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. That's it. And like I say, if you're going to eat some animal products, I'm not going to be the person to tell you to not do that. And actually, I will be so bold as to say I would rather you ate unmessed with animal products than I would highly processed things that contain no animals. There's a lot of fake foods out there right now that claim to be healthy because they're vegan with the labeling on the front, but you look at the ingredients that are in them. There is a product I looked at 5 or 6 years ago now, that a friend of mine asked me, is this healthy? And when I started to research the ingredients in it, one of them, the only other thing I could find that ingredient used in, were yoga mats and sanitary products, as in nappies and sanitary towels. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I don't want to eat something that's used for those purposes. So, if you don't recognize an ingredient, there's probably a good reason for that, and tread carefully. And going back to the purpose of this video, the things at the beginning, eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. Best bit of advice that I can possibly give, and it's not even my advice, it's Michael Pollan's. So, a lot of kudos to him. He's written some awesome books on food, things like The Food Rules, In Defense of Food, The Omnivore's Dilemma. I highly recommend any of those books. And also there is an In Defense of Food documentary that I think is on Amazon Prime that's also worth checking out. So, go check out his work. I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I do think that it's a very strong message, and that is why I am using it. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this video, and I will catch up with you again very soon. Cheers. Bye.